The first episode of the series Pilgrimages to the Origins of the Shrines of the Holy Land takes place at Dominus Flevit on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus contemplated Jerusalem and wept, prophesying its destruction. The Catholic Ordinaries of the Holy Land gather in plenary assembly organized a special time of prayer to Our Lady in time of coronavirus at the shrine of Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Haifa. The heart of the Jewish feast of Purim is, after all, the memory of an adventurous story, the one in which Queen Esther managed to save the people of Israel scattered throughout the Persian Empire. It is this sudden reversal of fortune that leads Jews for a day to step out of the box, masquerade, and celebrate. In the Holy Land lie the ruins of the ancient city of Chorazin. The appeal that Jesus made to the inhabitants of the place ties in with the theme of conversion during the time of Lent. The pilgrimage goes back to the origins of biblical man, from the experience of Abraham.
Il pellegrinaggio, evidentemente, quando uno legge.
When one opens the Old Testament, the Bible finds Abraham an eternal pilgrim who always trusted the Lord. The pilgrimage had a central feature. One came to Jerusalem to meet the Lord. It meant to be seen, to present weaknesses, virtues.
Presentare le sue debolezze, le sue virtù.
In the New Testament, there are Jesus and Mary who came to Jerusalem every year for Easter.
Ogni anno venivano per la Pasqua.
On one of these pilgrimages, Jesus wept over Jerusalem, prophesying its destruction. Dominus Flevit is one of the most beautiful places from which to contemplate the holy city. In the morning, the sun illuminates the ancient walls. At sunset, the stones of the city are tinged with gold. The sanctuary is located in the middle of the Mount of Olives. It is one of the favorite places for pilgrims because from here you can admire the whole city. The city as we see it today is not the city of Jesus' time when he prophesied the destruction of the temple. The area around the sanctuary is rich in artifacts dating back to the first Christian generations. From the beginning, pilgrims came to this place in the middle of the countryside, on the slopes of the Mount of Olives, and said, "From here Jesus looked at the city and wept over it," as Luke's Gospel says. Then the place came into the possession of the Fran-ciscans, a small place, not very big, because a large part of the Mount of Olives belongs to different Christian communities. The Fran-ciscans didn't have the permission from what was then the Turkish Muslim Authority to immediately build a new church. The Lord said that you could only build a new church if there was an old one on the site, and there wasn't one there. That was the problem.
E lì non c'era. Questo era il problema. Però, ad un certo punto, ecco che
At some point, the Franciscans acquired a piece of land from the nearby Benedictine sisters, and this gave way to archaeological excavations that brought to light an ancient Christian and Jewish cemetery and the remains of a Christian monastery with a small chapel.
E portarono anche alla luce I resti di un monastero cristiano che aveva una piccola cappellina.
Important excavations conducted between 1953 and 1955 by Brother Bellarmino Bagatti, archaeologist of the Studium Biblicum Franciscanum, brought to light the remains of an ancient necropolis dating back to Roman and Byzantine times, a complex of tombs and sarcophagi and ossuaries. Some of them have evident Christian signs and date back to the first Judeo-Christian community of Jerusalem. Engraved or traced with charcoal, on the walls of the ossuaries appear the crosses, floral motifs, the letter tau, Constantinian monograms, and 43 inscriptions in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, as well as recurring names from the New Testament such as Mary, Martha, Philo the Cyrenian, Matthew, Joseph, and Jesus. The church was built in 1955 by the Italian architect Barluzzi. It stands on a floor of the 5th century. The dome of the Dominus Flevit creates 2 of the 4 ogival lunettes in bas-relief. Of particular intensity is the depiction of the weeping Christ right in the church, which, in its shape recalling a tear, is one of the most original works of Barluzzi, who is also known as the architect of God. In the original drawing you can see the stained glass window, through which today you have a view of Jerusalem. Under the altar, a mosaic bears the words of Jesus, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you kill the prophets and stone those who have been sent to you. How many times have I wanted to gather your children like a hen her chicks under her wings, and you did not want to." The Dominus Flevit is the first destination for the liturgical pilgrimages that, according to a tradition born at the end of the 19th century, take place in Jerusalem during Lent through the shrines linked to the Passion of Jesus. The Fran-ciscans of the Custody of the Holy Land arrived here for Vespers and Holy Mass, presided over by Brother Eleazar Arteaga Chavero and concelebrated by the superior of the shrine, Brother Sebastiano Matti, Brother Marcello Ariel Cicchinelli, and about 20 priests. At the center of the homily, the tears and the weeping, of pain but also of joy, as God, as of all men. Weeping is also a way of entering into this deeper communication with God. It is the revelation of God's heart. It does this through the person of Jesus, his words, his deeds, his tears, because in the end he wants to reveal his heart on the cross. Jesus' weeping in this place is a step toward the greater revelation of God's love. The Dominican Father Lukáš Popko, who will accompany all the pilgrimages, then emphasized crying as an opportunity for sharing and communion with others.
Non è soltanto importante piangere o non piangere.
It's not important to cry or not to cry, but who are you crying with? Are you alone? What is the reason for your tears? It is always a gift both to find someone before whom I can open my heart, and the moment when someone opens up, to express something that perhaps cannot be expressed in words.
Che esprime questo che forse non può esprimere con le parole.
On March the 2nd in Haifa, the Assembly of Catholic Ordinaries of the Holy Land prayed for the intercession of Our Lady of Mount Carmel to end the pandemic, to grant eternal rest to the dead and consolation and comfort to the sick 1 year after the beginning of the spread of the coronavirus.
Abbiamo voluto pregare insieme, valorizzando le tradizioni dei vari riti, in questo caso.
We wanted to pray together, valuing the traditions of the various rites, in this case the Maronite, Latin and Melkite rite, asking the Lord to stop the pandemic. This pandemic that afflicts the entire world has affected everyone, because we know that bishops, priests, religious fathers, mothers, husbands, wives, children, the elderly and young people have died. Praying together is something very important, because the Bible tells us that when prayer is done with humility and trust, it is able to cross the clouds.
Perché la Bibbia ci dice che la preghiera, quando è fatta con umiltà e con fiducia, riesce ad attraversare le nubi.
Catholic Church leaders have invited youth and families to pray together on Thursday, March the 4th at 6:30 p.m. Jerusalem time. The intercessory prayer will be available on the Christian Media Center's main social platforms. Gathered in their plenary assembly, the Catholic Ordinaries discussed the many challenges facing the Christian community of the Holy Land.
We are going to have finally an ecumenical directory. We are mixed Christian communities, Orthodox, Catholics, all the different churches, and we need to have guidelines how to deal with these wonderful mixture of different communities, but also we need to have some clear instructions what to do, especially for the sacraments, how to deal with these in the schools, how to preserve this beautiful unity and also distinction among the Christian communities. Then we analyze a little the situation of the schools, which is quite concerning. Then we discuss about the family and some practical issues.
Tutte queste sono sfide molto concrete per la Chiesa di Terra Santa.
All these are very concrete challenges for the Church of the Holy Land and for all Catholic communities, but also for the other Christian communities present in the Holy Land. For this reason, it is necessary to periodically have a confrontation among us. It is also necessary to be able to identify the most urgent problems and to be able to identify guidelines, pastoral lines to be offered first of all to priests, parishes, catechists, but also, for example, to teachers and parents.
Ai catechisti, ma anche, ad esempio, agli insegnanti e ai genitori.
The prayer took place in different rites, but the request for intercession to Our Lady, our Mother, was unique. The heart of the Jewish feast of Purim is basically the memory of an adventurous story set in the ancient Persian kingdom, but emblematic of the dangers faced by the entire people of Israel for millennia. It tells how Queen Esther, a Jewish, unbeknownst to all, succeeded in foiling the plan of Haman, the king's perfidious advisor, who had decided to exterminate the Jewish people scattered throughout the empire. Like any respectable story, the Megillat of Esther, this is its original name, should be listened to together, all gathered round the scroll that contains it, while the readers take turns in reciting it aloud.
La comunità si è spezzettata, abbiamo organizzato 2-3 punti di lettura della Megillat.
The community broke up. We organized 3 Megillat reading points to avoid large gatherings. It was a very difficult year, precisely because Jewish holidays are family holidays by nature, but with the anti-COVID restrictions they lose the possibility of being observed according to tradition.
La possibilità di osservarle secondo la tradizione.
Already dressed in masks, whenever the name of the villain Haman is heard, everyone stump their feet and make noise with the intent of erasing his memory. There is balagan, hubbub, confusion, for one must remember that the people of Israel are saved once again. It is this sudden reversal of fortune that leads the Jews for a day to step outside the box, disguise themselves and celebrate. Purim also arrives in the rigid ultra-Orthodox quarter of Mea Sharim in Jerusalem, while in the main streets of the city, despite the ban on gatherings still in force, a few improvised parades managed to block the traffic. Some masks also appeared, very much in line with the times. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bathsheba! For if Tyre and Sidon had seen the wonders that have taken place among you, they would have been converted long ago, clothed in sackcloth and covered with ashes. Well, I say to you, on the day of judgment, Tyre and Sidon will be treated less harshly than you.
Meno duramente di voi.
These words from Matthew's Gospel speak of cities condemned by Jesus, including Chorazin.
La città di Chorazin, che è citata sia nel Vangelo di Matteo che nel Vangelo di Luca.
The town of Chorazin, mentioned in both Matthew's and Luke's Gospels, is a small village located north of the Lake of Galilee, about 3 kilometers from the city of Capernaum.
Del lago di Galilea, a circa 3 chilometri dalla città di Cafarnao.
The miracles that occurred in Chorazin are not mentioned in the Bible, probably because no Christian community spread them. Archaeological findings date the founding of the city to the 1st century AD.
Il villaggio di Chorazin, secondo le evidenze archeologiche, doveva essere stato fondato proprio intorno al I secolo. In realtà il massimo
The village, according to archaeological findings, is supposed to have been founded around the 1st century. In reality, its maximum development is placed by rabbinic sources in the period that Israeli archaeologists call the Mishnaic and Talmudic period. This is when, around the 3rd century AD, the city of Chorazin experienced its greatest splendor. A development that lasted for some time until around the 8th century, the city was abandoned. It was then further rebuilt only in the Mamluk era, in the 14th, 15th century AD.
Creare lì un insediamento soltanto poi nell'epoca mamelucca, quindi ormai nel XIV-XV secolo d.C.
One of the interesting things about the place are the still well-preserved houses made of stone with some columns. The city covers an area of 10 hectares and is divided into 4 districts. In the central area there is a synagogue.
Che cosa è importante dal punto di vista storico a Chorazin? A Chorazin sono stati trovati...
What is important from an historical point of view? In particular, a synagogue has been found here, the one that is visible today, but it is not the one of Jesus' time, nor is the one in Chorazin or Capernaum. Instead, it dates back to the so-called Talmudic Mishnaic period. We would say it dates back to the Byzantine era, therefore to a period that followed the New Testament. This synagogue of Chorazin is important because inside of it a chair was found made of the typical black basalt stone of the lake, of which the synagogue itself is also made, which is called the Chair of Moses.
La pietra basaltica nera di cui è fatta anche la sinagoga stessa, che viene chiamata appunto la cattedra di Mosè.
Conversion. It is Jesus' call to Chorazin in that time, the same call he makes to us today, especially in Lent.
Ecco, possiamo dire che allora anche per noi è attuale questo messaggio.
We can say that this message, this invitation to conversion made by Jesus, is also relevant for us. We are called to listen to the word of Jesus. We are called to become aware of those gestures of power that even today Jesus makes within his church, within history, and we are therefore called to give an adequate response by converting to God, to his message, to the gospel.
Convertendoci al suo messaggio, convertendoci al Vangelo.
From today, news of the Holy Land at your fingertips. Download the new Christian Media Center app to find the latest news. Available for Android and iOS. Follow us on our social platforms. Carry the Holy Land in your pocket.